Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
DM to Goncalves. I don't know which Goncalves. They should have just put Kaylee, so we didn't have to speculate. Maybe that's someone else, right? Maybe she was texting any Goncalves. We don't know.
Why you always lying?
Okay, seriously, Phoenix? They put the victims' last names. Here's an example of that in that same document you were looking at. You'll see Goncalves and then Mogan. Okay, the people they did initials for were the non-deceased people because they were still redacting their names. Also, you can see that Dylan texts the name Kaylee. See how that's in quotes? That means that was the body of the text. Kaylee. So why would she say Kaylee if she was texting somebody else in the Goncalves family? Okay, use your brain.
BF to DM said Xana was wearing all black. This basically indicates that Bethany saw Xana. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is firsthand witnessing that Xana was wearing all black. That means Bethany physically saw Xana wearing all black. But how could Bethany see Xana if she was downstairs in her room watching baby daddy eating chips with a toothache? If Bethany is telling Dylan Xana was wearing all black, and Dylan is saying, no, it's like a ski mask. The guy is about my height, definitely a dude. And then Bethany is saying Xana's wearing all black. She's describing a female. She is describing a female that looks like Xana. She thought she saw Xana. That is a guy and a girl. A guy who looks like a basketball player, somebody that looked like Xana that was wearing black. There you have it. Bethany mistook someone that looked like Xana.
Why you always lying?
That's because Xana was wearing all black when Bethany saw her earlier in the day. Remember when they took the photo, when they went to the parties? That's when Bethany saw her, not at 4 a.m., okay? Bethany didn't see a female walking around in a mask wearing black. But she had seen Xana earlier in the day wearing all black. She no doubt made the comment about Xana wearing all black to try to alleviate Dylan's mind, since Xana had been wearing all black earlier in the day.
Oh, what's this? Let's zoom in a little bit more. Let's see what we can find here. That looks to me like a phone cord. Is that a phone cord right here in this picture right in the center? Hopefully you can see my little cursor. Why would her phone be dying? She's in her room with her charger. Plug it in. Exactly. Exactly my point. Hello, hello, hello. Gotcha. What do we see in the drawer right here? A charger port that you plug into the wall, and then you see a cord. It was there all the time. It was there the whole time. Right there. Bam. Why didn't she just plug it in, lock her door since she said she looked at it 2 or 3 times, and then plug that bad boy in? But why are you always lying? Busted, guilty. How does that make you feel now after 3 years of thinking all this was actually real? Phoenix, we really need to show the G's these facts and evidence. Oh, hell no. What are they going to do? Gaslight us more?
Why you always lying?
Oh, you mean like you're trying to gaslight? How is Dylan lying? She never said that she didn't have a charger in her room. She just said her phone was going to die. Do you know how many times I've gone to bed and been playing on my phone and then realized I didn't plug it in and looked and suddenly I've got 1% charge? I do that quite a bit. I imagine other people do as well. And if she's hearing people and not sure what's going on in the house, the last thing she's going to do is go plug her phone in because she didn't even realize it was dying until she was looking at it when she was texting Bethany. So stop your gaslighting, okay? Dylan didn't lie.
What in the world are they talking about? A social experiment in the middle of a what? Of an investigation. Who in the world would actually say stuff like this on camera? Yes, it was there. It was right in front of us, right here. This was from the transcript of part 1, which was accidentally marked. It's actually part 2 on Connor's page. And The first priority is a long time ago after social experiment save the problem.
Why you always lying?
Okay, that's this body cam footage here, and I'm going to play it. I do not hear anything about anyone saying a social experiment. Let's take a listen.
First priorities. Well, I think it's a long time to go out there because people might realize, that I'll be safe.
Okay, what I'm personally hearing is them talking about the first thing to handle is security, and then talking about safety. So if social is used in there at all, it's probably talking about the social media and getting things out to the community about safety and security of the neighborhood and the town. But you guys can decide what you hear, but I do not hear social experiment in there at all.
We don't know if there was anything under Kaylee's nails. We've never seen the reports. We don't know the DNA under Xana's nails. Still don't know. They never let out what was under Ethan's nails, if anything.
Why you always lying?
Actually, that's all been released in that forensic doc drop, and here's the item numbers for their nail clippings. It's like Ethan, it goes Xana, it goes Maddie, and it goes Kaylee. Okay, you can see Ethan only had his own DNA and Xana's DNA. And you can see Xana only had her own DNA and Ethan's DNA. And then it goes into Maddie's at the bottom of this page. And then Maddie's goes into this next page where it talks about how she had a mixture of her own and Kaylee's, and then a third, which was unidentified, and then those different likelihood ratios. And then Kaylee only had her own DNA under her fingernails. So those results have all been released.
Ellen was 19. They didn't get her for drinking or anything like that, but she just celebrated her 21st whenever. She's 21, so I guess... How did she live off campus? It was said that she was approved to live off campus. That's all I know about that. She was allowed to live off campus. Was Dylan an actual U of I student? Allegedly, yes. Yeah, allegedly she was. And
Why you always lying?
Why is it that when you're flat out lying about something, you rarely say allegedly, but when you're telling the truth about something factual, which is Dylan being a U of I student, you say allegedly like she wasn't one? Well, yes, she was a U of I student. She was in Pi Phis. She pledged in 2021. Here's some photos from the bid days for those 2 years showing that she was a member of University of Idaho, Pi Beta Phi, which means she was a University of Idaho student. Also, she was not a freshman. She was a sophomore, so she didn't have to get special permission to live in an off-campus house as a sophomore.
Bethany is the one that finds the bodies. Bethany is the one that calls. Bethany's the one that's given immunity. Bethany is the one that tells Dylan, run down, even though Dylan has a charger.
Why you always lying?
Okay, first of all, what are you smoking? Because Bethany isn't who found the bodies, Hunter Johnson is, and Bethany did not have immunity. I think you're getting confused about this boilerplate language in the out-of-state subpoena, where it talks about if you come back in service of the subpoena, you will not be subject to arrest. Okay, that's boilerplate. That's Idaho state code that must be on any out-of-state subpoena. And here is that code. 19-30-20, exemption from arrest and service of process. If a witness from another state comes into or passes through this state under an order directing him to attend and testify in this or another state, he shall not, while in this state, pursuant to the order, be subject to arrest or the service of process, civil or criminal, because of any act committed prior to his arrival in this state under the order. That is not immunity. That is just language that's required on all out-of-state subpoenas to ensure that there's no roadblocks in the way. So let's say Bethany had a whole bunch of unpaid parking tickets that have now turned into a situation where she could be arrested. This is just saying if you come back to testify, we're not going to touch you over the parking tickets. Has nothing to do with the murders or immunity for the murders.
And then we see Dr. Singh step away from doing any autopsies for any of these counties. Any. Because someone could lose their medical license if there's something funny happening, guys. No one's going to put their life on and their career in shambles.
Why you always lying?
Dr. Singh's not worried about her medical license because she conducted the autopsies professionally, didn't cover anything up, didn't lie, and she did not cut ties with all those counties. They ended the contract with Kootenai County. Okay? See that highlighted? Kootenai County. And the reason why ties were cut with Kootenai County was because there was a disgruntled former employee of the Spokane County Medical Examiner's Office that was working with the coroner in Kootenai County to destabilize their office operations in Spokane. So again, she cut ties only with Kootenai County. Not all the other counties, not Latah County. Kootenai County begins with a K, not the letter L like Latah.
They're going to go into Pennsylvania on December the 16th. They're going to go to where? Pennsylvania on December 16th. Payne said they didn't have his name until the 19th. Hold on 1 second here. Hold on. Anyways, there's one fireball.
Why you always lying?
No, that's not a fireball. That's just you either blatantly lying or not understanding how to read documents. It does not say they went into Pennsylvania on December 16th. It says surveillance video showed him on December 16th. Okay? In Albrightsville. Remember, they got his name, and then they used the TLO system to do a query about where he lived. And then they started pulling surveillance video to see his whereabouts. That was all done after the 16th. They didn't know his name till December 19th. Remember, you can request things from past dates. That doesn't mean you physically went into the state on December 16th.
Payne says it's consistent with the 8458 phone traveling from Pullman, Washington, to Lewiston via Highway 195 at approximately 12:36 p.m. That's when, after he saw the car accident with the college girl Carmen Fernandez, for some reason, he gets in his car and he leaves his apartment at 12:36. Who would get in their car and leave at 12:36 on a Saturday night?
Why you always lying?
12:36 p.m. on November 13th, 2022 is not Saturday night. It's Sunday afternoon, and it's not right after the car accident. It's hours later. It's later in the day after the murders. It's on Sunday. He went down to Clarkston on Sunday afternoon, not Saturday around midnight.
And in this document, it also states, get this, that at 12:46, he went, at 12:36, he passes Kate's Cup of Joe, and they've got the footage for that, U.S. Chef Store, and then the adjacent white Elantra suspect vehicle 1, it's called again, and then it passes Kate's Cup of Joe at the time consistent with cellular data. If you map this out, it's almost impossible, okay? Like, he had 16 minutes to get to somewhere where it would take, 25 minutes. And you can map it out yourself. I ran the map.
Why you always lying?
Really? So it's impossible to be at Kate's Cup of Joe around 12:36 and then around 12:46 be at the Albertsons and then at 12:49 be seen inside the Albertsons? Really? So are you not familiar with the location of these businesses in Clarkston? Because that is very possible because they're all right next to each other. Let me show you. So Kate's Cup of Joe is right there on Port Drive. And then there's the Costco, the one he walked into and walked out of because he didn't have a membership. And then right in front of the Costco is the Albertsons. So all right there within basically the same block and a half area. So I'm not sure why you think it takes 25 minutes to drive from Kate's Cup of Joe to Albertsons, because it definitely does not. I've been there. I've done that. Definitely doesn't take 25 minutes.
It goes on to say, at approximately 12:49, surveillance cameras showed Kohberger walk through the store, purchase unknown items at the checkout, and leave at 1:04 p.m. in the afternoon. We think he basically was there because cameras show somebody like him.
Why you always lying?
No, people don't think it's him because cameras show somebody like him. People think it's him because the cameras actually show that it's him. Okay? This is him on surveillance video at Albertsons and Costco.
And what happened around the time of the crime? It says right here, additional analysis of records, approximately 5:32 to 5:36, the cellular provided coverage in Johnson, Washington. The phone then stops reporting to the network from approximately 5:36 to 8:30 p.m. That is consistent with the phone being in the area that 8458 phone traveled in the hours immediately following the suspected time of the homicides occurred. Now, how is that freaking possible? The phone stopped reporting, it says, it's actually p.m., 5:32 p.m. and 5:36 p.m. And then it goes on to say 5 to 8 p.m. Now, is this a typo? Is this a typo and they meant a.m.? Because this would change the whole timeline. Phone activity patterns immediately after statement. It says the murders occurred in the evening, 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., and we know that can't be possible. This PCA, this report is just a bunch of crap. If they can mix up the AM and PM, what else is off? We're not looking at precision or assumption. The report says PM, but everything else says it should have been AM. Why is that so big?
Why you always lying?
Oy vey. You are completely misinterpreting what's being said in the PCA. It's not a typo, and it's not saying that the murders were in the evening. What they're saying is that when he was coming back from Clarkston on November 13th, 2022, in the evening, that between approximately 5:32 p.m. and 5:36 p.m., the phone utilized cellular resources that provide coverage to Johnson, Washington. Then the phone stops reporting to the network from approximately 5:36 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. So that's when he was driving back from his shopping trip. They point out that that path of travel was consistent with what the phone ping showed for how he traveled after the murders. So they're comparing the route he took as far as his phone pings on the shopping trip to the route he took after the murders earlier in the day. They're not saying that that was at 5:36 in the morning. They're saying it's at 5:36 p.m. when he was coming back from Clarkston, and that route is similar. And here's the map showing where that cell tower near Johnson is. And you can see coming back from Clarkston and driving back to Pullman, he went by Johnson, which when he left Moscow after the murders, he took a route that took him back down south and then up north through the Johnson area. That's what they were trying to show in comparison. It is not a typo.
This former WSU student, which I've showed you her pictures, her mother does live in Seattle. Her father lives in Nampa. Her stepmother lives in Nampa, and her stepmother's name is Brittany Fernandez. And that just happened to be the same name of Dylan's new contact that night. And I said, remember, if Brittany reached out to somebody at WSU or knew Carmen, then they basically, hey, maybe I'm going to send a message to her mom to make sure she's okay. And then added Carmen Fernandez, stepmom in Nampa, Idaho, to her list, Brittany Fernandez. That is very possible.
Why you always lying?
Yeah, that's not possible, and that's not who Dylan was adding as a contact. First of all, Carmen's mom does not live in Seattle. She lives in Yakima. And secondly, Carmen's stepmom, her name is not Brittany, and her stepmom and dad do not live in Nampa, Idaho. They also live in Yakima, Washington. So maybe learn how to properly research things before you run with something.
If Brian did get into his car and go and follow someone, is it possible that he followed Ethan? If Ethan, speculation of course, was involved, because no one knew where Ethan was, allegedly, they were trying to find where Ethan and Xana were. We found out that Xana at 2 p.m. was somewhere else, but where was Ethan? Ethan was still unaccounted for, people. They were trying to check timelines. Now, if Brian saw this accident, then he knew that they arrested this girl, Carmen. And if he was a witness or he heard something or he went to the scene of the crime and said, hey, what's going on? And a firsthand witness told him, hey, some dude smashed into this car. This girl hit these two people and this guy fled. What kind of car was Carmen driving that night? Well, now that the video's been scrubbed, hardly anybody even knows what kind of car that she was driving, right? Wasn't it a white Elantra? I often wonder if these two cases were truly related, which they have tried to hide.
Why you always lying?
Okay, a lot to unpack here. First of all, video, not scrubbed. Body cams, still out there. Easy to find. It seems like whenever you're too lazy to look for footage or you're just blatantly lying, you claim something's been scrubbed, and that's never true. Secondly, Ethan had nothing to do with this. It was a one-vehicle accident caused by Carmen. Nobody fled the scene except her. Inmate 163214 did not go chasing after anyone. He did not leave his apartment until closer to 3 a.m. Not sure what Xana's whereabouts at 2 p.m. have to do with anything, because this accident was around midnight. And again, around that time frame, Ethan was over at the Sigma Chi house anyways, and Carmen definitely was not driving a white Elantra. Let's listen to some of the body cam footage.
I saw a Jeep Cherokee driving with a busted up light.
Okay.
It looked off. For sure.
Responding units, we're looking for a Jeep Cherokee. Last seen on Brandy
2000s.
driving towards Valley, early 2000s. Damaged light.
Gray, darker color.
Relax, bro.
Oh my God.
The right light on the car was
Yeah,
off.
it was completely busted up.
Okay.
I was walking.
Hey, just lay still, boss. Just lay still.
I was walking.
Just keep his head as still as you can, okay?
Hey, stay
Stay down.
Just stay right there.
Stay
Don't
down.
move, I swear to God.
Give me one more unit to the scene, and everybody else look for the vehicle. We have it. Did someone see what color the Jeep was?
Black, I think.
Black or some other dark color? Okay, hold on. Just stay over there for me, real quick. Did you guys see the vehicle hit them?
Yes.
You saw the vehicle actually hit them?
Yes.
Okay, tell me what happened.
So basically, we were just walking down. The vehicle was like literally in the middle of the road. Then just kind of swerved, hit the pole right there, went on the sidewalk, hit the fire hydrant, hit them, and then just sped off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of, you saw it was a Jeep?
It kind of looked like a crossover,
Yeah.
kind of. Like
Okay.
a bigger crossover.
Like one of the newer, like Grand Cherokee, not like the boxy Jeeps,
Yeah,
but
it
like
was a-
kind of like, it looks kind of like my car,
Yeah,
but it was a Jeep. Okay.
I'm not 100% sure it was a Jeep. Did you say it was a Jeep?
I'm not sure if it was a Jeep. I just.
Okay.
Yeah, just a car.
It was like a hatchback like mine though?
Yeah.
Okay. Number, but it says the make, model, and trim. It's a Jeep Grand Cherokee in a, I think the Nomi, but
Is
it's
that
got,
a Grand Cherokee, really?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, Carmen Fernandez is the RO of the vehicle. She's got a address with a 2003 date of birth, so she may be a student. We could have WSU check on that.
And here's where he's looking at the car after she ditched on Greek Row. It was a Jeep, dark colored Jeep, not a white Elantra. They're not trying to hide any connection because there was no connection between this accident and anything that happened at 1122 King Road.
The cops described, yes, they did, the SUV with damage. They described the SUV with damage. Could these two incidents be one? Could this be one? All right. The SUV hit the fire hydrant, then the people, and then the pole. Well, then how did her car get involved? How did Carmen Fernandez's car get involved? If the SUV hit the hydrant, then the people, how did that make sense? Her sister had taken the truck and did the hit and run. Now, I remember her sister borrowing her car. So
Why you always lying?
Wait, you're seriously wondering how that happened? How her vehicle got involved? Because she drove drunk and she hit two people and a fire hydrant and a light pole. And no, her sister didn't steal her car. She tried to claim her sister was in the car with her as a passenger, and her sister pretty much was like, no, when you listen to the body cam. Carmen was driving by herself. Also, she blew almost twice the legal limit. That's how that accident happened. Okay? Single vehicle accident. She could have killed those two people. Hit a fire hydrant, hit a light pole. And it's absolutely ridiculous that you're trying to use that tragic incident to try to tie it to another tragic incident. The two of them have nothing to do with the other.
what was he really saying? Let's get into it for just a few minutes.
But they didn't respond, and he went in there, he's seen something, and I think around 2:15 you hear when somebody truly sees something. Like, you got to remember, there's blankets, there's covers, there's the bed. So this person, they could have totally been covered up to where you just flip that blanket over and all of a sudden you understand the impact of what really happened. They're not sleeping anymore. It is what it is. And you hear kind of like a roar, like a painful roar. And I think that's what was going on. But that's just me. That's just my interpretation of the same call that you guys are analyzing.
So, according to me, I heard Steve say Hunter tried to go inside the door. Something was going on in there. Hunter got in there, and he didn't mention anything about Xana being on the floor at this time at 2:15. No mention of Xana. Hunter goes in there. There were covers on Ethan. Ethan takes the covers off. Hunter takes the covers off of Ethan and sees what happened. Okay? At the time that Hunter sounded like he was trying to get inside the room to see what was going on in there, there was no Xana in the picture. At 2:15, does anybody remember what happens? And we can go to the Linda Lane archive. Still missing footage between these time frames. And it's all broken up. It's all broken up because between 2 and 3:30 at least, it is still missing except for this 13:30 Linda Lane audio that I'm going to share, and we're going to review it. Yeah, you can hear it. That's what's going on at this time. Hunter.
Why you always lying?
Okay, well, you don't hear Hunter on that Linda Lane audio. But also, Steve is not referring to any of the video or audio footage from 2:15 in the morning. He's talking about the 911 call. 2 minutes and 15 seconds into the 911 call. Your clue that he's talking about the 911 call is because he says the call, okay? The call that you're analyzing. He's not talking about video. The call. So we're going to take a listen to around 2 minutes and 15 seconds into the 911 call, and you can hear what Steve is talking about.
She's not waking up. Okay. One moment. I'm getting help started that way. Okay, thank you.
I'm worried for the American people and the bullshit they continue to feed us in cases like this.
Well, Phoenix, I'm worried about the bullshit misinformation that you and others keep peddling in the Idaho 4 case. So, do better.